Good morning.
And before we start, I just would like to conduct a small survey because last time we have conducted internal auditors training program and it was divided into three parts. So I would like to know how many people have attended all the three parts, how many people have attended one or two parts, that's partially, and how many people have not attended that at all, so that I know that how to go about this particular presentation. You can type your response in the meeting chat. People who have attended all the three sessions, people who have attended either one or two sessions, people didn't attend at all.
Dr. Sandeep, just to extend your point, we have got Jenny Doria. Jenny Doria was not involved in any of the internal audit session, but I have got her on board because she is a key person in doing the pharmacy manual, and uh, 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 she will be handy for us to get the pharmacy side of the auditing done.
Okay. Rest of the people, please give me a feedback. One or two sessions, all the three sessions, not attended at all. All right. So, last time I got a feedback from your project champions that, you know, the training for internal auditors was a bit too much technical and people couldn't get it. So this time I have prepared a sort of a, different approach, a new slide decks. And I thought I'll take it in a very different way so that people understand it. I've tried to simplify it. So today's topic is auditing process-based management system. Now, if you take any ISO management systems, whether it is ISO 9001, ISO 14001, ISO 45001, or that for that matter, any standard which addresses the requirement of a particular management system, they are all process-based. Now, all of us, we know what is a process. We will look into it during the presentation once again. But then we are going to learn the technique that how we are going to use the process-based management system. The agenda is going to be we'll learn what is an audit, how to prepare for and plan an audit, how to conduct or execute an audit, how to report on the audit, and how to close, how to finally close the audit. So the audit starts with planning, audit start with doing, audit start with checking, and audit start with acting upon it. So again, we see the PDCA cycle here. And this approach is also called PERC, PE, planning, execution, reporting, and close, PERC. All right. So we are going to learn the process approach or the process mentality, how to develop the process mentality while conducting the audit. Consider policies, objectives, processes, products, and organizational alignments. Prepare an audit plan, conduct an audit, document audit findings, and write an audit report. And ensure that we follow for the corrective actions about the findings of the audits. So let us try to understand what is an audit. Audit is defined as a systematic way. Audit is defined as a systematic, independent, and documented process for obtaining audit evidence and evaluating it objectively to determine the extent to which audit criteria are fulfilled. Now, this definition is there in ISO 9000 2015 and ISO 19011 2018. Both the standards are in the family of ISO 9001. So ISO 9000 is about the quality management system fundamentals and vocabulary. This standard, it talks about the kind of terms and definitions we use in ISO 9000. And ISO 19011 is a guidelines for auditing management system. So this training program is based on ISO 19011 2018 because these standards tells us about how to go about auditing any management system. So let us come back to the definition again. The audit is a systematic, independent, and documented process. So audit has to be systematic. Audit cannot be an unplanned manner. It cannot be on the ad hoc basis, and it has to be independent. It has to be independent in the sense that people who conduct the audit, that means auditor has to be independent of the process being audited. That means a person from the same department cannot conduct the audit of his own department because then in that case he will be biased. And of course, it is a documented process. That means you have to have audit policy, you have to have audit procedure, you have to have audit scope, you have to have audit boundaries, you have to have audit criteria. Still, you can see the presentation because somebody is trying to move the audit slides. I have taken the control back again. You can see the slides, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So it is a documented process. That means we have to have the policies, we have to have procedure, we have to have scope, we have to have boundary, we have to have criteria of the audit. Now the audit, what is the purpose of the audit? It is for obtaining the audit evidence. The evidence is a hard fact about, and it is about the evaluating it objectively. That means you cannot have any subjective opinion. When we say, last time also we talked about the requirement of the standards are binary, and Darin has done a value addition, and he said that binary, that means either yes or no, either 1 or 0. So you cannot be in between as an auditor. When you make a particular statement that this is my audit finding, that audit finding has to be very objective. That means it has to be backed by the hard facts to determine the extent to which audit criteria are fulfilled. So audit is a systematic process. It is an independent process. It is documented process. It is used to obtain the audit evidence for evaluating objectively. That means no subjective element, no personal opinion, to determine the extent to which audit criteria are fulfilled. What is an internal audit? An internal audit is an audit that is performed by or at the direction of the members of the organization. That means your top management, they have to direct you that, we have to have an audit program or we have to have an audit plan. And then you people, you have been trained as an internal auditors. You have to follow their direction to conduct the internal audits. Now the question comes, why should we do the audits? Now the possible reasons could be ensure compliance with any standard. So whether it is ISO 9001, ISO 14001, there has to be an audit criteria. So we need to find out that whether the company's management system is complying with the standard. To ensure the compliance with the organization's requirements. So that means you cannot have, uh, any organization has got its own system. And what we are trying to do is that we are trying to bring in the framework of ISO 9000 or ISO 45001 or 14001 and trying to superimpose that framework on the already existing system in place. So that means the organization has got its own requirements. So organizations will have its own requirement related to its own customers, related to own suppliers, or related to its own stakeholders and shareholders, and of course the operations. The audit is to ensure the compliance of the statutory and regulatory requirements. That means you have to make sure during the audit that the organization is complying with the legal and the statutory requirements of the country in which it operates. The land of the law has to be complied with as far as any ISO system is concerned. So in case the organization systems fail to comply with the statutory or regulatory requirement, then this could be a major concern. And ensure that either quality management system or occupational health and safety management system or a food safety management system is implemented effectively. The audit is about the processes, the audit is about the system, audit is never about people. So remember that. I mean, many people, they are scared of facing the audit because they feel that in case there are any audit observations, then the blame of non-conformity will be fixed on them. So this is my caution to all of you, you being trained as an internal auditor. At the outset of any internal audit or an external audit, you have to make a positive statement, a positive proclamation that this is a process audit, this is a system audit, and any audit finding has got no bearing on a personal incompetence or the personal non-involvement in the system implementation. All right. So make sure that you don't, while doing an audit, you present it in such a way that it is a mistake of an auditee, it is a mistake of a person. What we are doing is we are auditing the processes, we are auditing the system. So when we are auditing a process or when we are auditing the system, we, we have the system, and we are going to apply the PDCA cycle. So we want to make sure that our system, that means the organization system, is not static, is dynamic. That means your system is in such a way that it creates an opportunity for improvement. Last time I talked about there are 5 levels of quality. So basically what we say is that there is an initial level of quality or an ad hoc level of quality. That means you don't have any system in place, people are not trained, but the point is that you are doing it on an ad hoc basis. There's a lot of firefighting going on. Then you move on to the next stage, that is what we call as a repeatable process. That means people are so confident and competent that without any system, they keep on repeating what they have been doing. The third level is called the defined system, where the system is documented and people try to do their things according to the documented system. The fourth level is called managed. That means, you have system in place. Now you are managing your operations according to documented system. And the fifth level of quality is that it's the optimized level, where your system is optimized. That means your system is so mature, it is documented, people are competent, and system is in the homeostasis. That means it's tried to improve upon itself. It tries to maintain an equilibrium of the continual improvement. So the purpose, one of the purpose of the audit is to find the opportunities for improvement. And as an I would say that as an auditor, if you do not find non-conformity, it is fine. All right, nobody is going to force you to find a non-conformity. In fact, there are certain certification bodies, there are certain accreditation bodies who evaluate their auditors by number of non-conformities they find in the system. I do not agree with them, because then, auditors go after finding the mistakes. Auditor's job is not to find the mistakes. Auditor's job is to find the opportunities for improvement. Auditor's job is to, ask the questions to the auditees in such a way that, they get that aha moment and they say, oh yeah, fine. We have been doing it like this, but I see an opportunity for improvement over here. You need to, look for best practices that could be applied in other areas. As an internal auditors, you will get a lot of experience, auditing your systems. As an external auditors, we have a lot of experience. We go around the industries, we go across various sectors and verticals. So what we many times come across best practices. Same time in your own organization, when you are an internal auditors, you will find, and many times it is true that the departments are working in silos. That means one department will be doing fantastically well. They have all the systems in place. People are competent. People are motivated. But in other department, maybe because of some reasons, they are not up to that level. So in case you find any best practice in particular department that you can share as an auditor without naming the department or without naming the people, that you have come across this best practice, because systems are everywhere same. Look for preventive action. That means when you find the non-conformance or when you find the concern, then of course you go through a root cause analysis, RCA. So you try to find out what is a problem, what are the possible causes of this particular problem, what is the best solution, and how do we implement that best solution. So when we are talking about preventive action, it is also a risk management approach. And look for outstanding emphasis on customer satisfaction. The purpose of any ISO management system is to go for not only customer satisfaction, but the customer delight. So you have to make sure. And when we are talking about the customers, we have external customers, we have internal customers, and we have intermediate customers. And last time, when in the beginning, when we started knowing about ISO, I told you there are three types of customers, and you cannot satisfy or delight your external customer until and unless you delight and satisfy your internal customer. So linking or linkages of internal customer is very important. Now let's talk about the principles of auditing. As an auditor, you have to be an ethical person. What is the meaning when I say you have to follow an ethical conduct as an auditor? Can anybody share his thoughts? What is an ethics? Sonia, Sarah, Vincent, Benedict, can anybody share what is an ethics? Moral principles, absolutely. So what is the moral principles? Responsible and accountable. Ethics is a study of what is right and what is wrong. All right, so you have to have a sense of what is right and what is wrong. That means what is right for your organization and what is wrong for your organization. You have to have the fair presentation. That means whatever facts you come across, you have to make sure that you present those facts as they are found. You don't build a story around it. All right, because many auditors have this kind of habit that they try to sometimes stretch too much. In case there is a major non-conformance, they try to present it in such a way that it is not a major non-conformance, it's just a minor, or it's not a concern at all. Maybe they have friends in that particular department, they don't want their friends to show in a bad light. There could be various reasons, but the point is, as an auditor, you need to understand that any fact you come across, you have to give fair presentation without prejudice, without bias, without any emotional content. Professional care, being an internal auditor, you have to understand that, you'll be switching the chairs. That means at one point you will be an auditor, the other point of time you will be an auditee. So, and ultimately all of you are colleagues, you are working in the same company. You are all part of the same team. So you have to make sure that you are sensitive enough that how you come across to your own colleague to whom you are auditing. So that professional care is very important. Independence, of course, I have told you in the beginning slides that auditor cannot audit his own department or his own process. He has to maintain the complete independence of the department or the process being audited. Objectivity and subjectivity. There should not be any element of subjectivity. That means not, there are no opinions, there are no bias, there are no personal filters, just objective evidence. That means you have to present the facts. Impartiality, you have to act in an impartial manner. You cannot have a partiality. That means when you go to a particular department, which is your favorite department, you are soft with them, and any particular department you feel there is a problem, you are hard on them. You can't do that. So you have to be impartial. At the same time, you don't have to accept any bribes or any emotional blackmailing. You being all the part of the same team, there is a possibility that after office hours, you might be going to a nearby restaurant or a bar, sharing a couple of beers, having a chit chat. Make sure that, whatever information you gather during the audit, it remains there in the audit room. It is not disclosed anywhere, or it is not discussed anywhere. It's very important. Evaluation has to be always based on evidence. So whenever you make a statement, that statement has to be backed by an objective facts. Competence, as an auditor, you have to be competent. Competence is defined as present ability to perform the task based on your education, skills, and experience. You have been educated now, skills you already have, how to deal with people, and the experience of conducting audit you will get by and by. It will take a little time, but yes, you will be competent auditors very soon. Cooperation. Audit is about the cooperation. That means it is the joint effort between an auditor and auditee. No audit will be successful without a full cooperation of an auditee. So you have to make sure you have to solicit support of an auditee to conduct the audit. You have to ask a permission of an auditee to conduct the audit. And when you have the permission, when you have the support, and when you have a cooperation, the audit will be successful or can be successful. The trust factor, it's very important. We have to follow the principle of trust. There are a lot of confidential things will come out, during the audit process. You have to make sure that these confidential things are not discussed anywhere or not disclosed to any party or any person who need not know about it. All right. And in case you have to disclose your audit findings, other than auditee and the top management, you have to make sure that you can have a casual talk with the top management, say that, do I have your permission to discuss this during the closing meeting? So whatever you disclose in the closing meeting or discuss in the closing meeting, it remains in that room, and it doesn't go out anywhere. All right. So these are the principles of auditing. Uh, Many people ask me these questions that we yearly have a management review or a self-assessment, and why do we need to conduct an audit? The point is that the management review is an approach of ensuring the effectiveness and the efficiency and improvement and customer satisfaction. So management review, it's not that you are conducting once in a 6 month or you are conducting once in a year. You are having a performance group meeting, you have your team performance meetings, you have your management review meetings, you have your departmental meetings. So meetings is about discussing the issue at hand. Meetings are about brainstorming. Meetings are separate from the audit. Audit, as I said earlier, it is a systematic process of obtaining objective evidence about the audit criteria, whether that criteria has been met or not. Self-assessment is that you do your self-assessment. For example, department would like to conduct its own self-assessment. Now, here again, the principle of independence and impartiality is compromised. But the point is that do you have a self assessment, you at least know where do you stand, and that is in the beginning we talked about mindfulness. So mindfulness, if you are mindful about your own processes, you always keep on thinking about it. For example, if something goes wrong in your department, you sit down and then you reflect, you think, you ponder upon it and say, okay, I mean, what things have gone wrong? So that's a part of a self-assessment. So fundamental difference, management view is the management approach which you follow. Self-assessment is that, you are assessing your own performance and the way you carry on the processes around. Audit is this second party element comes into, a third party element comes into the picture. There are three types of audits: external independent audits, which are called third party audit; customer audit or suppliers audit, they are called second party audit; and internal audits, they are called the first party audits. So external independent audits, the third party audit is your certification audit. That means he is also called certification body or a registrar. Americans, they call them the certification body as registrars. Rest of the people call certification body or just CB. All right. So customer has got a requirement. The customer requirements are passed on to the organization. So many times customer tells the organization that we want your quality management system to be ISO 9000 certified. And when you are certified, come back to us, because that's one of the criteria of our supplier evaluation process. So the organization goes to an independent certification body. An independent certification body conducts an audit and issues you a certificate. That is called the external independent audit. Soon, once your internal audit is over, you are going to face an external audit. And once you are trained being internal audit, you will appreciate efforts of an external auditor, because the process and the approach remains the same. The customer audit is basically audit conducted by the suppliers. So you as a customer, say CPL, you have n number of suppliers. So while evaluating, while approving, and while re-evaluating your suppliers or your vendors, you can carry on their audit. It can be based on any criteria, either it can be ISO 9001 or ISO 14001, or it can be your own management system. Many Fortune 500 companies, they have their own audit criteria when they are conducting audit on their vendors or suppliers. And the internal audits are the first party audit. That means the organization are conducting audit on themselves. So the auditor and the auditee are from the same organization. And as we know, it is about to evaluate the performance to the organization's objectives, identification of the issues and the problem areas, and finding out opportunities for improvement. So three types of audits we have covered so far. Is it clear to you? Yes, no, maybe? All right. Thank you. Now we will try to see the process approach. So when we are talking about process approach, the process approach takes us towards the evaluation or evolving nature of the quality management system. So here, there are various criterias, whether we have internal focus and we have customer focus. So until and unless we have internal focus, that means we don't have, if we don't have focused on our processes, we will lose the focus on our customers. Always remember that. Same thing is that if you are focusing on the controlling the processes, you so much start controlling your processes, you stop improving your processes. So there has to be flexible approach. So quality assurance, and you know, by quality assurance, you don't think that the quality belongs to only quality control or quality assurance department. Quality assurance belongs to everybody in the organization. So when we are talking about any management system, it is everybody's concern. You cannot say that ISO 9000 is a baby of project champions. That means Jonathan and Rajendra are only responsible person for it. They are the people, probably they are in the tight spot because they have been chosen by the top management to lead this project. And many times, we come across many organizations that entire ISO systems are shouldered by project champions, because the rest of the organization, rest of the people think, oh, whatever we are doing, it's a different thing, and ISO is a different thing. No, these are not two different things. In fact, we already have the framework when we run an organization. Now we bring an external framework, which is a benchmark framework, ISO 9000, international standard. It has been implemented in more than 165 countries. All right, so we bring benchmark processes. We try to superimpose those processes on our already existing processes, and thereby we try to improve our processes solely for the purpose of customer satisfaction and delight. So ISO is not only about the project champions. ISO is a responsibility of everybody in the organization. You have to move from the management to the leadership. Leadership is not the position. Leadership is the process. Leadership is the process of inspiring and directing people. And all of you, most of you, I think, would be managers. But point is that management or a manager is fine when you are managing system. The role of the manager is very limited. But when you have to get things done, when you have to move forward, when you have to do the continual improvement, you have to get into a leadership shoes. That means you should have the enough capabilities to inspire, motivate, and direct people to achieve a particular goal. Again, you cannot have a documented procedures all the time. Many people ask, many even external auditors have got this bad habit that every time they'll ask for, okay, fine, show me the documented procedure. Point is that standard is not asking for it. Standard is asking for processes, and standard is telling you if it is important and critical, then only you document the process. And process can be documented in many ways. If you have a software, for example, you have Pronto software, it is already a documented and automated process or a procedure. So as an auditor, please don't ask for a documented procedure. Whenever it has been asked by the standard, then only you ask for a documented procedure or a process. The process can be in any type or can be any medium. That means either it can be a hard copy, paper, or it can be in the soft copy, it can be on the computer, it can be a procedure, can be in the form of the video, procedure can be in the form of audio, procedures can be in the form of the pictorial presentations. When you go to the airports, international airports or domestic airports, or you go in any part of the world, even though if you do not know the language, you will be still able to move around airport very easily. For example, you go to Japan and you don't know Japanese language, but still when you get down at Narita airport, you will be easily able to navigate your way out, either exit or the entry, ingress or outgress, very easily, because all the signs are pictorial. All right, so you look at the picture, the pictorial language is very universal. You can easily go about and go around. So your processes can be in the pictorial forms, and your processes, of course, can be in the software form. That means they can be automated. And now we have what is called as RPA, robotic process automation. Darren, have you come across RPA now, robotic process automations?
No, I haven't before, Dr. Sandeep.
Yes, now we talk about Industry 4.0. The Industry 4.0 is what we are called them as cyber physical systems. And in the cyber physical systems, the artificial intelligence takes source and it runs the processes automatically. So you will find the 80% of the banking process nowadays, 80% of insurance processes nowadays, they are run on RPA. That means the artificial intelligence run those processes. So there's hardly any point of mistake. But the point is that these systems can be hacked, and then you really don't know. I mean, what things would be and how difficult it would be. And that's why we are moving towards now blockchain technology. So it's very sophisticated way of encrypting the entire data so that it's very hard to hack. So if you have a robotic process automation, if you have the software like Pronto, still it is a managed process. All the processes you have to understand they are interdependent, and interdependent in the sense, take an example of an iron chain. All right, iron chain has got a links, but then you have one link which is weak. So my question to you, what is the overall strength of the entire chain? You have an iron chain, a long iron chain, very high, high quality iron chain, very heavy iron chain, but one link you find it weak. It is not strong. So what is an overall strength of the entire chain?
Yeah, Dr. Sandeep, the strength of the chain is only as strong as its weakest link.
Absolutely. So strength of your entire process, they are interdependent processes, is as good as your, the weak process. So we have to understand that all our processes are interdependent and the integration of these processes are very important. And the process approach also makes sure that your processes are aligned towards your business model, your policies, and your objectives. And that's why in ISO 9000, for that matter, any standard, we start with the context of the organization. Now, what is the context of the organization? It is basically your business model. So you have to make sure that your processes are aligned with your business model, the policies and objectives of your organization. Uh, there is a principle for process approach. When we initially got trained, in ISO, we talked about this process approach. Desired results is achieved more efficiently when activities and related resources are managed as a process. This definition is a requirement of the standard. And we all very well know what is the definition of the process. Process is defined as set of interrelated activities which we conduct to convert inputs into value-added output. So if you look at the diagram, every process will have inputs, every process will have an output, every process will have resources, every process will have controls, every process will have activities and sub-activities and tasks, and every process will require a particular environment. For example, we are carrying this training program in the technological environment. If we don't have this environment, we'll not be able to carry out our processes very effectively. So what are those 5 inputs? Do you remember those 5 inputs? Every process requires inputs. We call them 5 M's. What are those 5 M's?
Yeah, Dr. Sandeep, it is money, method, material, machine, and manpower.
All right, so that means the inputs are coming from the supplier. That supplier can be internal supplier or an external supplier. Output is could be your external supplier or your customer or your internal customers, and process can be any process. The system, we have seen system is the collection of the processes. System is defined as set of elements arranged in an orderly manner to achieve an objective. So any system has got certain objectives, and they are set of interrelated, consist of interrelated processes or elements. And that's why we have taken example of a car, or example of a refrigerator, or example of a computer. Computer is a system. It has got elements. It has got the input devices, output devices. It has got a monitor. It has got a CPU. It is arranged in an orderly manner to process the data. All right. So how do we do the process auditing? So these are the 4 tools which we use for process auditing: PDCA diagram, SIPC model, turtle diagram, and risk assessment model. We'll go through them one by one. PDCA was propounded by Professor W. Edward Deming, guru of quality, the professor who taught Japanese how to go about quality management systems. Single-handedly person responsible for, Japanese quality. He propounded that if you want to improve the quality, you have to follow PDCA or PDSA cycle. That is, whatever you want to do, you plan it. Make sure that your planning is effective. Once you have done your planning, you start doing according to your plan. While doing planning, you have the factors critical to your quality or critical to your customers. You start monitoring them, you start checking them, you start measuring them, and if there is a deviation, then you act upon it. That mistake suitable corrective and preventive action, and again go back to the plan. So if you see, this is the continual spiral which will take you towards the continual improvement. So plan, do, check, act. Plan, do, check, act. And the beauty of PDCA is that when you are at the plan, in the planning itself, you can apply the PDCA cycle. So plan, do, check, act. And when you are doing it, again, you can apply PDCA cycle. How you plan about doing things, how you are doing the things, while doing the things, how you are going to check the things, and again you go on acting. So plan, do, check, act, plan, do, check, act, plan, do, check, act, and plan, do, check, act in all the 4 quadrants. So when you go to audit any process, the first thing what you need to see that whether this process applies PDCA cycle. That means when you interview your auditee, you have to ask, fine, so this is the process. How do you go about the process? How do you plan the process? What are the planning elements? What do you consider while planning this process? And after you have done the planning, what are the planning elements? You know about it, how you go about doing the things. So what are the activities you carry on? And while doing these activities, what are the performance criteria? Those are critical to your quality. We call them CTQ, or critical to your customers. We call them CTC. What are the parameters you check? And if there is a deviation, how do you take the corrective action? So remember, when you review any process document, when you review any procedure in any format, either it can be managed process or it can be documented process. And while you are interviewing the auditee, you have to check for PDCA cycle. This is another model, which makes you easy to understand the process approach. It is called SIPC model. SIPC stands for suppliers, inputs, processes, outputs, and customers. And it shows the linkages interrelated linkages. So you will find that there are suppliers. Suppliers can be internal suppliers, can be external suppliers. Then the process. The process will consist of several activities and sub-activities. What are those activities and sub-activities? What are these inputs to the processes? What material required? What machines required? What manpower required? What are the competence of that manpower? What is the output produced by that particular process? And who is the customer? Either he is external customer or internal customers. The process has got a loop, backward loops, which gives the signal to the input or the suppliers about the requirements and the feedback. And the same thing, customers, you take the feedback from your customers. So when you take a feedback from the customer, we call it VOC, voice of the customers. So this is a CPOC model. So as an auditor, you have to develop an eye to look into a CPOC model. When your auditee is describing you the process, mentally you see that in front of your eyes. Okay, what is the CPOC? And then you ask the question, okay, who's your supplier? Is your supplier the internal supplier or external supplier? Now, for this process, what are the inputs you require? Can you list on those inputs, or can you tell me those inputs? What are the activities you carry on when you conduct this particular process? What are the sub-activities? What are the outputs, and who's your customer, whether that customer is internal customer or external customer? Now, what are the parameters which you monitor? Critical to quality, critical to customers. So CPOC model, many auditors try to, when they conduct the audit, they take a plain paper and they draw the CPOC model. Or many auditors, what they do is that they take this template of the CPOC, and when they are interviewing the auditee, they just make a notes in these particular boxes. So it becomes very easy for that. So if any particular element is missing, they'll be immediately point out to the auditee that, look, I have to have a further clarification on this particular input or on this particular activity or this particular output, and I'm not sure that I get it right. How do you monitor this particular activity? So the second way of, the second tool, most effective tool, I would say, conducting audit is the CPOC. The third audit is called turtle diagram. Now, this is something like a CPOC model, but then you see a sort of a figure of a turtle. And then you start again with inputs and outputs. You see what are the materials, equipments, the buildings, hardware, software, who's going to conduct who's the process owner, what is the personal competence, how you are going to carry on the process, how the process is controlled, how do you support the processes, and what are the measures, what are the parameters against which you identify the criticality of the processes and the success of this particular process. So I would like to go one by one again. So these are the first is you start with PDCA. Then either you can use the CPOC model, supplier input processes, okay, then the turtle diagram, and the final is the risk management. That means for every process, you have to check that whether the risk management has been carried out. That means what is the risk been identified for that particular process. All right, so let's take an example of one by one. Anyone from the pharmacy division here? Pharmacy, person who manages a pharmacy.
Yes, Dr. Sandeep.
Can you, Jenny, elaborate on this Plan, Do, Check, Act in your department, in your processes, briefly?
Can you repeat that one, Dr. Sandeep?
Plan, Do, Check, Act. Can you elaborate how do you apply PDCA in your department?
Plan, do, check, and act. For
Yeah.
example,
What do you do planning? Yeah.
planning. Like for example, planning in ordering.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is we check whatever is our lost sales.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we plan on to check the stock level of the shop, and then
Okay.
we check the lost sales,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's also for checking. And act is we place our orders to
Mm-hmm.
the warehouse or to any from the supplier as well.
Okay. And what are the parameters you monitor? What do you check?
We do check for example, our lost sales report.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what corrective action if you take if you find that the parameters are not up to the mark?
What we do is we check the stock level of the warehouse as well, and then
Mm-hmm.
we play if there are what's this one, if there are stocks, and then we place our order, and then we also check if there are, for example, the min max setup as well.
Okay. So I believe you got, yeah, we review the minimum and maximum stock level. Absolutely, absolutely correct.
Yeah, we're also checking those. We're also checking those.
Okay, fine. Okay, so let us see the SIPOC model. Supplier, we review the minimax, yeah, correct. The supplier input processes, the outputs, and the customer. So let's take another department. Darren, can you explain this SIPOC model for your own department?
Yeah, yep, okay. All right, so we start with the suppliers. So suppliers for IT, and are you talking external suppliers there? Or?
Both internal suppliers and external suppliers.
Okay. Just trying to think of a scenario.
The external suppliers are your vendors who are supplying you the hardware and the software.
Yeah.
And you also have your internet service provider.
Okay.
Your
right.
electricity supplier is your external supplier. Yeah. Who are your internal suppliers?
Yeah, internal suppliers. We've got internal customers. I don't know if we've actually got any internal suppliers.
Internal suppliers, basically when you start developing a new software or when you start modifying the existing software because your process, have changed, or you require some sort of an amendment to your software, then you are going to collect the change requirements from the internal process owners.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, so the people who give you information about the changes in your software or the improvement in your software, they are your internal suppliers.
Okay, so we've got the marketing department at the moment. We're in the process of upgrading our real reward system, which is like a frequent flyer system. So they're going to let us know what changes they want. I guess the inputs are the actual changes that they want. So one of the things we want to introduce is tiered points, a bit like some of the airlines have gold, silver, and bronze level members. So we're going to introduce that to our reward system. And then the process, I guess the first step is designing the changes. Well, the first step is identifying what changes, designing it, building it, testing it, and then do a final user acceptance testing before putting it live. And so the output is the final product, the final changes. And then I guess the customers is seeing how they're using it. So internal customers There will be new reports for them to look at, new screens, new input screens for them to learn how to use. And for the external customers, there'll be new benefits, new opportunities to move into the different tiers.
All right. So can you explain us a process in detail a little bit about, how you go about, modifying these changes? Because I believe, you will have sort of a wireframe diagram. You will have, the graphical user interface, which you go back to the internal customers.
Yep.
And then, you take the approvals and feedback from them, how you feel about this particular graphical user interface, or the functionality of this software, isn't it?
Yeah. So right back earlier than that. I mean, as part of the initial design, you also need to know what data you want to capture. So you've got to, when you're building the database, you've got to know which fields you want to capture, whether they're date fields, whether they're numeric, whether they're alpha, and whether they're qualified fields, whether they've got to be validated or not. Like, you can't have a date into the future. Can you have it into the past? Are there numbers that are too high, too low, those sort of things? And yes, so that's the database design considerations. And then, as you said, after that, you've got the GUI interface. So you need to work out what you want displayed on the screen, how it's going to be for the user that's inputting the information. Make it easy for them to put the information in. Don't jump around to too many different screens. Yeah, so you've got to consider, from that respect, you've got to consider how the customers interact with it, make it as easy as possible. And then there's the designing of the reports, what information is going to be useful, why is it going to be useful? So you need to say, all right, we've got reports that show how many customers are spending how much money at each store, and what are the products they're buying. So why are they buying those products at that store and other products at other stores? And then make sure we've got enough products at each of those stores to meet the customer needs and requirements. And so and just continuing along those sort of processes, there's quite a lot of planning that goes into it.
See, Darren just required a little, push from me, little inputs from me. And then he started describing his own processes, and he can go on and go on and go on for maybe hours together, because he is involved in the processes. So same thing is that when you talk about process approach, you have to go, you have to have the deep dive, You just cannot describe your processes 1 or 2 sentences, because you have been doing it so many activities. But the point is that you do these activities day in and day out. You don't see them as a separate sub-processes, separate processes, separate tasks. So be aware when you're describing your processes, and as you can see from Darren's example, that you can keep on going on and taking a deep dive, and you can describe your process. So as an auditor, you should be able to elicit that requirement, bring about that, the description from the auditee. How do they follow the SIPC model? Now let's look at the turtle model. I mean, if some auditors would prefer to take the turtle diagram with them. Anybody would like to describe their processes in the turtle diagram? Vincent, can you do that for us? Take any process. We have no response from Vincent. Anybody else would like to take their department or process and would like to apply turtle diagram? What are the inputs? What are the outputs? What we are going to check? Who's going to do that? Who helps? how processes are controlled and monitored, what are the support processes, and what are the measures, what are the parameters. Anybody from purchase department? Why people are so quiet? Did you get the turtle diagram? Yes, no, maybe. Is turtle diagram clear to you? Please respond. Hello, this cannot be a monologue. This has to be a dialogue.
Dr. Sandeep, just looking at the turtle diagram,
Yes.
It's very similar to what I'd say a project is all
Yes.
about. You've got to describe the activities or the resources, the what, and then the who owns which process or the tasks involved, who else is involved with it, who helps with it, who's impacted by it, and then the inputs. So customer needs, yeah. So it's very similar to
SIPC diagram. Absolutely.
very similar to the SIPC diagram, yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Risk management. Can anybody identify the risk in their own department? What are the risks? What are the risks they have identified? How they have analyzed the risk? So assess the risk, identify the risk, assess the risk. What are the control measures and how do they review the control? Anyone from warehouse? Anyone from purchase? Anyone from inventory? Anyone from finance? Anyone from operations, pharmacy? What is the risk management? Jonathan, can you elaborate risk in your own department? The internal monitoring department, right? Yours is internal control department.
Yeah, for the internal control, in terms of risk management, we have the 4, which is already listed. We have assess, we have control, we have review, and we have identify. So it's a continuous cycle. So when we example going out to the shops, firstly we try to identify what are the risks. So we have internal risk. We have also external. We can also have system risks, and people can also be one of the risk as well. And once we identify the risk, we try to assess. So assessment of the risk will also depend on what kind of people are doing what sort of activities. So from there, if it is an internal control, if it is a process, if it is a system, or if it is people, then that's when we try to identify what is the control mechanism that can be put in place to reduce the risk or to mitigate the risk. And from there, we try to come up with some controls. So that's after we identify and assess. And then once we review the controls, and that's where we try to confirm with the managers what is the best practice so that we can be able to reduce or mitigate the risk. Because especially when we are dealing with inventory, one of the big risks is like people not following processes. So what is the outcome of it? The outcome can be wrong input into the system, finger error because of not skilled workers, or probably because of external factors which is impacting the activity and also causing disruption to the process. So those are some of the things that we try to identify, especially when it comes to the risk management, because risk is a really big field which everybody should be a concern to everyone. Risk management. So in everything that we do, we always want to think risk.
Thank you. So now we have a guest PN. Uh, who's PN? Who's writing about the inventory? Can you elaborate on whatever comments you have made in the chat? PN guest for inventory. We have risk that involve.
That's Patrick.
Yeah,
Patrick
Patrick,
Noah.
please. Patrick, please. Can you elaborate on that, please? Patrick, you have an access to microphone. Yes or no? Or you are sitting in a group? Okay, you don't have a mic at the moment. Fine. All right. So, you can read the comments of Patrick. What he says is that for inventory, we have risks that involve manipulating system stock on hand if the staff have the access to do so. So for any adjustment that increases or decreases the system SOH, approvals for adjustment must be taken before adjustments are done. All right. So yeah, that's a good input, Patrick. And again, I will repeat, these are the 4 tools which we have to use for any audit, either internal audit or external audit. First is the PDCA cycle. Second is a SIPC model. Third is a turtle diagram. And fourth is a risk management. So SIPC or the turtle diagram, you can use interchangeably. They are almost the same. All right. It is a personal choice. Some people find SIPC useful, easy. Some people find turtle diagram easy and useful. So there are these 4 tools: PDCA, SIPC, turtle diagram, and risk management. Now, ISO 9001, the auditing is covered in clause number 9.2, and it is part of the section 9 performance evaluation. It emphasizes determining the effective implementation and maintenance of the quality management system, which we have seen before. Now let's find out how to prepare for an audit. So planning the audit program. Now, when you plan the audit program, again, you can look at the audit itself as a process. So when you have to plan as an audit, let us try to apply these 3 tools. First, apply PDCA cycle. Then we will apply SIPC model. And then we'll apply risk management model. So the PDCA cycle, first we have to plan the audit activities, in the sense, in the planning, we are going to see, which department we are going to audit, who's going to be your auditee, what is going to be the audit scope and criteria, what are the policies and procedures we are going to audit, what time we are going to audit, and what could be or would be duration of the audit. That is the planning. Doing is that you conduct the audit. That means, you start interviewing the auditee and checking the objective evidence in terms of documents and the managed processes if they have the software run systems. While doing, you have to check whether, as an auditor, you have an ethical behavior. As an auditor, you are having, objective behavior. You are not looking through any bias or, any filters, and you are totally independent. So that is a check what you have to do. You have to check whether you are not deviating from your audit criteria and audit scope and the purpose of the audit. And if there is any problem, you take corrective and preventive action. Now let's try to apply the SIPC diagram here, or the turtle diagram here. So inputs to any audit process, you require, you require the criteria. What policies, what are the history of that particular department or process in that department? When you carry out the previous audits, were there any non-conformities? What are the typical problems in that department? What kind of concerns are there from the top management as far as that department is concerned? What documents or the managed systems or the softwares they use? Who's the customer? What is the customer feedback? And then you start planning in terms of the time frame. What are the resources required for conducting audit? You require the information, you require time, you require trained personnel. The management of the audit process, the management is going to provide you resources in terms of time, in terms of trained manpower. The management is going to review the results of the audit, and they are going to use the results of the internal audit for their management review. What is going to be the output of the audit process, the audit reports, the findings of the audit, the corrective action request CARs. We don't call them NCRs, non-conformity report. We prefer to call them corrective action request or corrective action reports. The follow-up of what kind of corrective action taken, what is the improvement we have brought in because of the internal audit, and what are the conclusions? How do we conclude the audit process? So to the audit itself, we can apply the PDCA cycle, we can apply the turtle diagram, we can apply the process diagram, process approach. And what is the risk to the audit process? The risk to the audit process is that people, untrained manpower, people are not trained. A risk to the audit process is that you don't have cooperation from the auditee. The risk to the audit process is that you don't have enough information to carry on audit. You don't have enough support from the top management. So these are the risks to the audit process. So I think by now it is very clear to you that when we look into, or when we look at any process, we look at from these four filters. We look from the four microscopes. The one microscope is the PDCA cycle. The another microscope is the SIPC diagram. The third microscope is the turtle diagram, and the fourth microscope is the risk management. And that is how we evaluate any process. The audit conclusion is about whether the system or the process is meeting the requirement of the standard. The statement regarding the suitability of the process to achieve the objective is a comment regarding the effectiveness of the process and suggestions for the possible improvement. So your audit conclusion or your audit report basically conclude all these four factors. The administrative issues to address during the audit, typically an audit boss is assigned by the management to oversee the internal audit process. The audit boss can be your internal lead auditor. Okay, you have to have the clear charter for the internal audit process. You remember we have made the project exercise on the project charter? Yes, no, maybe? All of you. And all of you have taken a lot of efforts in creating the project charter. So every internal audit process should have the charter. That means what exactly you are going to achieve. And if you see the project charter, and if you see these four tools, PDCA, SIPC, turtle diagram, and the risk management, all that is reflected in the charter. Tie with the other auditing, that means you cannot conduct auditing in silos. You have to make sure that all the department taken care. For example, in the hardware house, we are not only going to conduct the audit for ISO 9000, we are also going to conduct for audit for ISO 45000, that is occupational health and safety management system. Then the overall audit plan and the schedule, when we are going to start, Monday or Tuesday, what time we are going to start, what time normally is a relaxed period for the auditee, when the auditee is free to face the audit, or can have enough time to participate in the audit process, and how you are going to provide the inputs for the management review. Are the better not to provide them verbally, but in the written report, and the analysis of the audit process and the results. That means you have to again reflect whether your audit process was just an exercise, a futile exercise, or did it do any value addition to your management system? Remember, the process approach is set of activities which we conduct to convert inputs into value added output. So same thing, please do not conduct. Got a chat from Sarah. She doesn't have access to the chat. Fine, that's okay. So please don't conduct audit because it is a requirement of a certification body. Audit is a requirement of your management system. Please conduct audit because it is a value-added process. So auditor criteria, if you are going to be qualified as an internal auditor, you need to have the knowledge and skills about the audit principles, procedures, and technique. You are getting trained for it. Management system, including quality management system. You have been trained in ISO 9000 and ISO 45001. Organizational understanding of the processes and procedures, specific procedures and product knowledge. For example, if you are conducting the pharmacy audit, then better you should have a knowledge about pharmacy operations. The same thing goes with the hardware house. Social interaction. Auditing is about the matter of fact, but then you have to conduct the audit in a matter of fact way, but you cannot conduct the audit. One moment, there is something we have, yes. When allocating resources, don't involve an auditor whom has is a spouse or a family relative part of the auditee. This may have a conflict of an interest and should be part of the audit preparation. Yeah, Patrick, well said. I mean, it's a risk to the impartiality. There is a possibility that there is a spouse or the partner or the family or the relative is a part of the audit team. There is a possibility that the impartiality could be compromised. Yes. In fact, as an external auditor also, we have to give an undertaking that we don't have any relationship, financial relationship, or any other relationship with the organization which we are auditing. That's a very valid point, Patrick. Thank you very much. And then, of course, social interaction. So, yes, audit is a fact-finding mission, but don't make it a robotic process. Being an auditor, as an organization, we are a social entity. As an organization, we are a part of the society. Society moves ahead with the social interaction. We are all social animals. So please remember, audit is a social interaction. Please maintain the decorum and the sanctity of this social interaction while doing the audit. Be courteous to your auditee and be mindful of the environment around the auditee. Don't pin down the auditee because there are mistakes. Yeah, there could be personal mistakes, but then the system is for that. We develop the systems so that we don't rely on the efficiency and effectiveness of the people. We are human beings and we are likely to make mistakes. And that's why we have process approach. That's why we have technology approach. So make sure that the audit process is well balanced enough. You are not too friendly with the auditee, because if you are too friendly, then there is a possibility that the audit objectives could be lost. And don't make it too robotic or too matter of fact way that it's very dry and then people don't enjoy it. So you have to really learn to strike the balance, how to conduct the audit in a very social way, in very easy way, but still you try to find out the facts. So the lead auditor is going to plan the audit. He is going to effectively communicate with the auditees, organize and direct audit team members, lead the team in reaching the conclusion, prevent and resolve the conflicts during the audit. He's a coach auditors in training, so he has to be coach and the mentor, and he has to consolidate team inputs and prepare a good report or a great report. So one of you would get an opportunity every time to be a lead auditor, to lead the team, and these are your job responsibilities as a lead auditor when you lead an audit team. So make an audit schedule, list down all the main activities and processes. list departments which are involved in the management system. They are basically would be all the department. Decide what activities to audit in what department. Be sure to include quality relevant supporting activities. Be sure to include ISO system level activities. Tick to ensure coverage of all pertinent activities, and assign individuals or teams to perform the audit. So make a list. Okay, so without list, I mean, when you start planning the audit, you have to make sure that you have all these inputs. So audit process, again, we come to the perk: prepare for an audit, perform the audit, report the audit, and perform the corrective action or the close the audit process. So in the audit process, you prepare the detailed plan for each audit, execute each audit, report audit results, including conclusions and your recommendation, take corrective actions if needed, and do the follow-up with the auditee whether they have closed the audit findings or not. You can carry on the audit approach either horizontally or vertically. This is especially true for the lead auditor. Horizontal audit is audit of one system across several functional groups. That means horizontal audit, I am going to conduct about, say, competence of people. So if I take competence of people, 7.2 clause number, I'm going to check competence of all the departments. So I'm going to take finance department and I'm going to verify the competence. So I'm going to check how the people are interviewed, how the people are inducted, what kind of induction training is conducted, how the competency is evaluated, what are the job descriptions, what is a performance evaluation when the training is given, how the training is evaluated, how the effectiveness of the training is evaluated, whether you take any feedback from the internal culture, the company culture from your employees, whether you carry out the employee satisfaction survey. So one process, one system, I'm checking in all the departments. So as a lead auditor, you can appoint an auditor and you tell an auditor, you are going to check the competence in all the departments, or you are going to check the document control procedure in all the departments, or you are going to check the continual improvement process in all the departments. That is called the horizontal audit. The vertical audit is that you take each function and you take a deep dive. That means you start. Vertical audit is about the SIPC. When you conduct the SIPC, it is a vertical audit. And some people, you do the combination of both horizontal audit and vertical audit. So many times there's a one auditor conducting multiple departments. So when he finds out a particular concern in one particular department, when he goes to another department, he also makes sure that that particular concern is not raised in that department. Otherwise, there could be a systemic problem because you find that one problem is repeated or multiplying in all the departments. So that is about the audit approach. Now, planning is the individual audit. Same thing, 5 Ws and 2 H. So you have to define why you are going to conduct audit. That is the purpose of the audit. When you are going to conduct the audit, the time, the day and the time and the frequency, where you are going to conduct the audit, the departments and the place, who's going to conduct the audit, who's going to be the auditor, who's going to be the auditee, what you are going to audit, what are the audit criteria, what is the audit scope, and how you are going to conduct the audit. Again, 5 Ws and 3H. So when we look into the process approach, these are the factors we look into. So we are going to define the audit objectives, audit scope, the boundaries, the define audit resources. This is typically done by the audit boss or the lead auditor. Define audit criteria, prepare and distribute an audit notification to the auditee. You don't simply, jump into a department and say, hey, today I'm going to conduct your audit. No. You have to give an audit notification. You have to take the confirmation from the auditee, and then only you have to go about conducting audit. Gather and understand the relevant documents, which is very important because you have to gather information about the conformance to the requirement. You don't have to gather information about the, not only, I mean, you just don't focus on the non-conformance. Many auditors do that mistake. That means they focus on gathering the information and documents about the non-conformance. I would say other way around, you conduct information more about how the system has been implemented, how the system is maintained, and how the system is continually improved. So gather information about that. That's more important. Prepare a work plan and the audit plan, who, when, how, what time, which particular desk, whether you are going to do the audit at the auditee's premises on his desk or in the conference room. Audit objectives are, of course, compliance with the ISO 9000 or ISO 45001. The objective is improved efficiency and effectiveness, and of course, the continual improvement. The audit scope are the boundaries of the audit. That means you are going to define which particular processes are included, which particular processes are not included, what process are you going to conduct the audit, what are the functions including, what are the people are included in that, and what is going to be the emphasis on the audit. That means either you are going to focus on one particular area of the process, or you are going to conduct the entire, you are going to check the entire process, and what is going to be the time frame. So, normally my experience is that you shouldn't take more than 30 minutes to take a stock of any particular process. 30 minutes is enough time to know about the audit. If you drag on more, then basically you lose the track of the time, and then you lose the track of the process of the audit also. Audit resources, again, who will audit? The team and individual. If a team, then who's going to be the lead auditor? And then do we have the appropriate technical expertise? For example, you don't have a technical expertise in conducting audit on the pharmacy, or on the software department, or on the IT department, then better you take a person who knows how the IT department functions, or at least if that technical expertise is not there, then you can prepare for yourself technical briefing notes. That means you have to go to Google, you need to find out how that particular department functions. There are a lot of good YouTube videos. You go to the video department and just, check in how typical IT department functions and what are their processes. A lot of information is available on YouTube and the search engines. You do your homework, so you don't require a technical expert to conduct the audit. The audit criteria is going to be what policies you are going to check, what procedures we are going to check, what are the standard operating procedures, work instructions, what are going to be the software modules you are going to look into. What are the external requirements? That means what requirements are coming from your external suppliers and your customers, and what are the internal requirements? What are the internal requirements from your internal customers and internal suppliers? Again, we are coming back to the CPOC model. So audit implies the comparison to the criteria, and we know what is the criteria. So must audit criteria be in writing? Yes, no, maybe. What's your opinion? Do we have the audit criteria in writing? Please give your inputs, please give your opinion. Do we need to have audit criteria in writing? Yes, no, maybe.
Yes, Dr. Sandeep, it definitely needs to be in writing so that it doesn't get forgotten exactly what it was or mistakenly changed, those sort of things.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Audit criteria has to be in writing, because if it is not in writing, you don't know where to start and where to stop. You do not know that what you're going to check. And if it is not writing, then it could be possibility of conflict between an auditor and auditee, right? So it has to be in writing. Absolutely. So again, examples of audit criteria, there are standard operating procedures, quality systems procedures, training procedures, calibration procedures, maintenance procedures, startup and shutdown procedures, emergency procedures, design procedures, records procedures, customer complaints procedures, specifications, drawings, advertising literature, and of course, your computer softwares. The example of audit criteria external, there could be an ISO 9000 2015 or ISO 45001 2018 or sector specific document like TS 29001. It's not applicable in your case. Your government regulations and industry codes, corporate policies, customer requirements, supplier requirements, and overall, the market inputs in terms of how the customer requirements are evolving so that you can provide the better products, improved services, or lower prices. Senior management, the goals and objectives set by the senior management. The audit notification. Yes, Darren, please.
Oh, sorry, no.
Okay, fine. So audit notification, the audit notification should have in writing the purpose and the objective of the audit scope and boundaries, the identification of the audit team members, the criteria of the audit, the anticipated start and stop dates and time, and audit interface, if any, if you are going to conduct face-to-face audit or you are going to conduct the remote audit using the information and communication technology platform. The notification to the auditee can be done by the auditor or the lead auditor. The auditors need to review as much as documentation related to the processes. Please don't go to the audit without due preparation. Do the documents appear to be adequate? See the adequacy of the documents or the adequacy of the system. Again, you have to apply these 4 tools: PDCA, CPOC, turtle diagram, and risk management. And what are the past audit reports and the corrective action request? And do we understand the requirement of the procedures and the work instructions? Should also note the information request list. Yes, of course, it should have the information request list in advance. If that is the case, the auditee is well prepared. The checklist of the relevant documents can be the standard ISO 9001 and ISO 45001. Quality system documentation, pertinent corporate policies and procedures, customer specific requirements, documented objectives or goals and objectives in that particular area, performance objectives, performance indicators, procedures and work instructions, past audit reports, past and open corrective action request, process performance data, the process yields, product performance data, customer feedback and complaint data, and the organization chart. You should know how that department functions. Now, when you prepare an audit plan, determine what work papers you will need to conduct the audit. Same what the Jonathan has said, that we need to prepare the list and prepare the work papers, and develop the questions to consider asking. What questions you are going to ask, what to annotate the procedures or work instructions. Do you want to do you require a checklist? Later on, when you get so competent that you don't require all this, everything can be prepared mentally. I mean, it happens automatically. It is not the requirement of the standard that you prepare an audit checklist before you go for an audit. But initially, when you are getting trained, when you are just starting on the path of being a competent internal auditor, this is going to help you. Later on, when you are competent, all these things will be prepared. It's all mental process. You will be able to do it mentally. So typical questions to consider during the audit process. This is how you can ask. Do inputs meet the specific requirements? How do we know our requirements defined and understood by internal suppliers? How is internal supplier performance measured? Is there any feedback mechanism to the suppliers? the preparing the audit plan, typical questions to consider related to the process. What are the objectives of the work center area, process, activities, and products? How do this relate to the overall objectives of the organization? Does everyone involved and know the customer requirements as appropriate about the both internal and external customer? Is there an understanding of what is necessary to meet or exceed the customer requirements, either internal or external? Are the individuals performing work correctly? Do they know what to do and how to do it? And do they have means to do it, including the documentation, time, and tools? Are applicable procedures available? How do individuals know what they have to perform? Work to requirements? How is continual improvement addressed? So if you see the typical audit questions, if you see, mostly we are using the open questions. Last time when we have conducted the internal audit programs, we have checked in what kind of questions we can ask. We can ask open questions, we can ask clarifying questions, we can ask expansive questions, we can ask closed questions. As far as possible, don't ask closed questions until unless the auditor is not willing to give you example. Closed questions means either yes or no. Please give me answer yes or no, and keep on repeating that question till you get the desired answer. Otherwise, keep on asking open questions. Typical questions to consider asking relating to the process output. Is the process effective in achieving the desired results? How is conformance to the requirement of the customers determined? Is process continually improved? How is customer feedback collected, solicited, and used? Preparing the audit plan. Again, performance improvement. These are the questions you can ask. Can this process or some of its activity be combined with other processes for increased effectiveness or efficiency? The evidence of transferable best practices. Are you checking other departments how they are doing? Are you adopting to the best practices by the other department? Are there any redundant or unnecessary activities? Many times, we develop the software, we start running the software, and over the point we feel that, this particular process is redundant. We don't require this particular module, but still people keep on using it because it is there in the software, and the software controls are built in until unless you key in certain data, the next process is not going to operate. So, but if it is redundant, it is of no value addition to you, but still you keep on doing it. So are you doing any redundant or unnecessary activity here? Are there significant risk of future process problems? That means, again, you are getting into the domain of risk management over here. So before doing the audit, consider clearly defined objectives and the scope of the audit, the team identification and the assignments, specific audit plan of the audit, including timing, flow charts, maps, so that you can translate them into SIPC and the turtle diagram. Review of the preliminary analysis of the formal documented requirements, communication and agreement with all the parties involved about how we are going to go about the audit, and the work papers prepared to guide the auditors in conducting the audit. So you have sort of a checklist or something like that. You need to check, have you addressed the adequacy of the documentation with respect to the standard, the competency of people, housekeeping, objectives of the area you are auditing, the measurement to determine if the process is meeting the requirement, the analysis of the data, the records, the correction and the corrective action, if any improvements been done, evidence of meeting the requirements, and feedback to the internal suppliers or the external suppliers and from the customers, and internal and the external. Now, these are the typical questions when you audit the top management. Please tell me, can you please explain what is the vision, mission of your organization? Have you identified the stakeholders of your organization? And have you identified what are the needs and expectations of your stakeholders? What are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of your organization? Do you follow risk management approach? What are the outputs from your risk management approach? What are the overall key performance indicators for this financial year? How resources are budgeted and allocated? What is the role of ISO 9000 and ISO 45001 in your organization? How often do you conduct management and the performance review? So, when you conduct the top management, there is a possibility that you might feel pressure. You might feel little, what I would say, scared. You might feel little, I would say, it's all, very difficult when, junior person is trying to conduct audit on the top management. All right, but the point is that somebody has to do that. In a lighter term, somebody has to build the cat. All right. So somebody has to take this responsibility of conducting top management audit. These are the questions you can ask. Don't worry, the top management is not going to be vindictive if you are going to ask any, but then if you stick to this particular script, it will be very easy for you to conduct the top management audit. If I have to conduct the audit of IT department and if Darren is my auditee, these are the questions I can ask. What support and services do you provide to your internal business functions? How do you see importance of your department supporting the business functions? What are the risks identified and how do you mitigate them? What are the key performance indicators of your department? How do you ensure the competence of people working in your department? How do you provide training to your users? What are the issues identified or encountered by you in your operations? How do you overcome them? In case you get an opportunity to do things differently here, what would you do? Have you identified any improvement opportunities? Darren, is there anything we missed here? These are the top level questions.
Yeah, no, that's most of them, or if not all of them, and they're questions that I ask myself on a daily basis.
Oh, thank you. Auditing facility management department. Anybody from the facility management here today? Yes, no, maybe?
Vincent.
Oh, Vincent. Oh, that's lovely. So what facilities and equipments do you manage? Do you have job descriptions? What services are performed in-house and what services are contracted or outsourced? How do you select and monitor external service providers? How do you receive service requests and how do you fulfill the same? Do you have preventive and routine maintenance program? Do you calculate MTBF, mean time between failures, and MTTR, mean time to repair? Do you maintain enough spares and other stocks? What are the issues identified by or encountered by you in your operations? How do you overcome them? In case you get an opportunity to do things differently here, what you would do? How have you identified any improvement opportunities? Auditing any retail outlet, whether your hardware house or pharmacy. So first you need to understand the demographic information to measure name of the outlet, the location, the address, the zip code, the type of the neighborhood, urban, suburban or rural, sales territory, which territory is the client under, type of outlet, convenience, gas, pharmacy, grocery, economic group, are you catering to the upper class, middle class, working class, the general conditions of the store during visit in store traffic, number on-site employees, etc. Because the context, yes, okay, fine, all right. Vincent, yeah, that's a reply. He's not in the facility department. Fine. So this is the information you need to collect. The product condition, the photos of the shelf before and after, merchandise activities, the back stock level, what is the stock level in the storage, adjacent products, what are your neighbors, how do you keep the projects, shelf tag presence, any shelf tags missing, product damage, records of any damaged product, stock level on shelf, highlight of the house out of stock situation, the planogram compliance, slotting shelf and facings, detailed price, how much is the product retailing for, location of the product, what locations can the product be found, the customer feedback on the products. The trade promotion compliance, the photos, document compliance issues with photos, promoted price, what is the promoted price, product location, are products in agreed location in the store, fully stocked, displayed, are displays fully stocked, product promotions, is the product being promoted, promotional material, are agreed upon promotional material displayed like posters, shelf talkers, stickers, promotional reference, is a promotional reference in the circular, everybody knows what kind of promotion material is being used, the feedback on the promos, any customer feedback on the promotional materials, and the promotional campaigns that you run. The rep process and the efficiency, the time of the arrival of the representative, what time did the rep arrive at the store, interaction with the customer, if any interaction is recorded with the customer for the purpose of the evaluation of the quality assurance, the time of the departure, what time did the rep leave the store, the interaction with the store manager and the colleagues, how he interacts with the team members, and the completion of the on-site forms, what sort of forms and activities did the rep complete, like audits and surveys and the software compliance. All right. So this kind of things you need to check. The pharmacy audit, you can prepare the checklist in detail. I have already prepared the list and emailed it to you about the warehouses, the quality audits and the occupational health and safety audit. So this is the way you can approach your audit. This is the way you can plan your audit, do your audit, check your audit, and take the corrective action, document your audit. So here we conclude the presentation. In case you have any queries or any questions, we can take them now. We have 10 minutes to go. Please be open if you don't understand anything, if things are not clarified. We'll take all those questions and queries now so that everybody is clear.
Dr. Sandeep, I have one question.
Yes.
Okay, out of these departments, do we have the criteria and the list down of the questions to be asked for pharmacy, the warehouse, the buying department that has been missed out in this presentation?
Yes, those are documents in Word documents. So as you know, we are recording this training. I'm going to forward the recording of this training, and I'm also going to forward the list, the audit checklist for these departments. Those are in Word document. Yes, I'm going to do that.
All right. Okay.
Yes, Sarah, yes, you are going to get the video of this particular training. So you also require a PPT slide deck, or you require a video. I can send you both, no problem. Yeah, Sarah got offline and missed some of the slides. No problem. Yeah, fine. I'll forward both to you. Raj and Jonathan, I'll email you the video of this presentation and also the slide deck. Yeah, I'll do that.
Actually, here, Dr. Sandeep, Sarah is the lone soldier from Hardware House because Alvin, because of the work dynamics, not able to join. And yeah, Sarah is the only one. So we have to give her a lot of assistance and support.
Yes, Sarah, I think you have been following up with me about repeating the training program, right? So I think your wish is fulfilled now. We are repeating the training program you got, and then you are going to get the video and also the slide deck and the other relevant material. So, we make sure that you are sufficiently equipped to conduct your internal audit. Any other question relating to, today I don't know how many people, because I've not checked how many people are checked in today for this particular training. But, you can definitely use this video presentation to train other people, those who are interested in becoming internal auditors.
Okay.
Any other technical query, any other query regarding the audit approach, audit tools, audit cycles? Is everything is clear to you? Yes, no, maybe?
Yeah, yeah, it's all clear, thanks.
All right, so there are everybody who has attended this training is going to get a certificate from us after your company certification. Your company is certified to ISO 9000. When we complete all the processes that you have attended the internal auditors training program. But people who participate in the audit process as an auditor and who attempt the exam paper, we are going to forward the exam paper later on. Those people will get certificate. They'll get one more certificate that they are being qualified as an internal auditor. Okay, so try to understand this distinction between these two certificates. People who have attended this training program and people who are qualified as an certified internal auditor. So please understand that there's a lot of value to this certificate, certified internal auditor. Individual, if you have to go out and take a training, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Okay, so is there a sudden change of certain process on the time of audit? Should we postpone the audit engagement? You should postpone the audit in case you find and you agree with auditor, auditee, and the team leader and the audit boss that the objectives of the audit not being met. All right. So it is not only about the change in the process. If you feel as an auditor that audit objective is not being met, you can postpone the audit and make sure that everything is in order, and then you restart the audit. Thank you for that question. It's really a good question. Sarah, do you have any more questions? As I understand, everything is on your shoulder in your department. So shall we conclude the training here? All right, so fine. All right. So Sarah says she's okay, fine. All right, thank you, Sarah. So shall we conclude the training? All right.
Yes, Dr. Sandeep.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Thanks,
you very
Dr.
much.
Sandeep. You too.
Thank
you.
you.